want to be understood, and it can feel frustrating when others fail to understand their perspective. Social identities impact how we view ourselves and others. For me, this concept primarily plays out in the classroom as I form relationships with my students. For my students of color, their past experiences with white people may impact how they view me or how they think I view them. According to Hobson, 2014, we cannot be colorblind and still seek diversity because part of being diverse is realizing we are different, but that we all bring something to the table. To the best of my ability, I create a classroom environment where all students feel safe to express themselves without judgment. I start forming relationships by giving all students opportunities to self-define and explain who they are at the start of the year. To me, allowing students to feel safe is the foundation of all learning. According to Hobson, 2014, color blind is ignoring the racial disparities that exist. However, being color brave is being aware of differences and trying to bring diversity into the workplace in order to bring the richness of everyone's experiences and points of view to the table. In thinking about Hobson's statement, I believe that we must first recognize where stereotypes exist before we can bring change into effects in our society. I remember some years back picking my daughter up from preschool when a young white girl put her arms around a young black girl and said, "She is my best friend, even though she is black," as if being black was some flaw that she was willing to accept in her friend because she was the bigger person. I am sure the conversation at home was well intentioned, but the results were translated in that being black meant less and being white, and that good white people overlooked it. I always think about this story when color blindness is brought up and how much damage it can cause even when people mean well. According to Rival 2015, in Massachusetts during the mid 1980s, a group of business leaders got together in order to reform public education by setting clear goals with standards with the expectation that all students would rise to meet them. The heart behind this endeavor was to have more workforce ready graduates. And as Revel says, if democracy is to function effectively into the next century, our schools must graduate the vast majority of students with achievement levels long thought possible for the privileged few. This effort didn't just get structure and goals, but it also got financial funds, leadership, and long-term commitment to see the follow-through be successful. My school is currently engaging in some of these practices as we look at losing accreditation. As much as I hate high stakes testing being the only data point, I am a strong proponent that every child is entitled to a solid education and that we need data to prove teacher competency. Without clear goals and targets, students and teachers can get lost. This year in particular, after taking some classes through Concordia, I structured my classroom differently and set off the year setting clear goals with my students with performance criteria. And we had the the measurement of academic progress as the benchmark parameter. And we just did our mid-year assessment. We've shown tremendous growth with kind of that expectation of clear goals that I could remind the kids of every day. And I think for me and for the students to be aware of what that target was really powerful. In Abington High School, scores were down for the subgroup populations, and in order to turn scores around, changes needed to happen. The school focused on data collection and reviews, studying best practices in educations and identifying support programs to help students in needs. And this is according to Sitchell Brown 2015. There is a commitment to follow through on the plan. We not only acknowledge our reality, we make a commitment to change these outcomes, also Sitchell and Brown 2015. This is crucial because before change can occur, there has to be an acceptance of what is broken. Blending students and opening up all levels of instruction makes it easier for students to equally access all curriculum. I love how data is used to drive instruction. This year, my co-teacher and I are heavily relying on the data to make sure that we're on the right track and that the kids are on the right track. And if the data is not showing any kind of growth, we have to question why and what we can do different for that student. There are some kids that I feel like in class, they're spot on. I would say anecdotally are going to pass the test, but then the assessments don't back that up. And so there tends to be some misfire between what they are able to verbally say versus what they can show on an assessment. The success students feel when passing tests is a wonderful thing to watch, but it has to be balanced with the reminder that each child is so much more important than a number, and intelligence is more than a test score. I think for me this semester in particular, some of the most powerful moves that I've seen with data aren't even kids that are now just going to pass an SOL, but their reading scores have gone from first grade level up to a fourth grade level. I mean, to make that much progress after having so many gaps for so many years, to me, it shows a greater impact just to have somebody literate and functional in society, even if they don't pass the final state assessment or not, which is one of the reasons that I love data, but again, multiple data points as opposed to just one high stakes test. Before talking about equity, I think it's very important that we first establish high goals for all students. Equity is the idea of using various techniques in order to ensure high levels of excellence for all students, regardless of race, gender, or socioeconomic status. Our society has roughly 30% white males, but they take up to 70% of the leading roles in corporate America. This should strike us as strange, but it doesn't, according to Hobson 2014. This is the privilege that people don't always recognize in the pull yourselves up by the bootstrap mentality that America loves to cite. Life does not dole out the same opportunities to each person, and the circumstances that a person is born into can greatly factor their options in life. However, like Hobson's mother, I believe in coaching children to reach high. To me, we need to allow children to believe in themselves and their dreams while simultaneously leveling the playing field in our current workforces and schools, so that the path is easier for them than previous generations.
Yeah.
According to Hobson 2014, by not having diverse workplaces, we rob ourselves of the outcomes that can come from tapping into the strengths of the entire population. While Hobson's talk is about race, she cites the diversity of intellectual backgrounds as well. This idea coincides with the heterogeneous classroom settings that are being touted as a better way for children to learn. I think by blending students and blending classrooms, you get along a lot of the divides that we sometimes perceive as intellectual, but sometimes can be attributed to race, gender, or socioeconomics, and other things that hold kids back from kind of reaching their fullest potential. Um, in my anecdotally 13 years teaching, what I've seen is that of the roughly 130 kids that I teach each year, there maybe are 10 that are truly exceptionally gifted that need things far beyond the regular curriculum. And on the same turn, there's maybe 7 to 10 kids on the very end that are very cognitively behind and need some special instruction to gain reading skills and writing skills just of a basic literacy level. The vast majority fall in a range somewhere in between with various strengths and things that they can bring to the classroom and learn from each other. So for me, I think to reach this type of equity, teachers have to be ready to diversify their curriculum, first of all, and also be willing to work with blended groups of kids with multiple talents and strengths. Um, when people recognize that all people have these strengths, we can tap into what each person brings to the table in order to make everyone stronger.